may be a better sedan value, but I don't know what it is.
Italians do art really well. The Pininfarina designed M139 Quattroporte, particularly in this hue of Bordeaux, really gets me going. And how about that sound?
So if you saw my Maserati Grand Sport episode, you know I love the Maserati Grand Sport. I mean, I love it. It's seriously one of the best cars I've ever spent money on. So when it came time to look for a new daily driver, I thought I'd do something special. I thought I'd compare a Quattroporte to an E60 M5, and I bought both. I hated the E60 M5 so much that I sold it within about a month and a half. I didn't even want to do a video on it because I was afraid you guys would flame me for being so anti the M5. But I really didn't like it. It felt fragile, it felt really expensive, it wasn't fast, it didn't sound great, it wasn't comfortable, it just didn't check any of the boxes for me. Then there's the Quattroporte. I've had this car for a little over a year now, put about 8,000 miles on it, and I've had zero problems with it. Now, as you watch this video, you'll find out zero problems in Italy is a little bit different than in the rest of the world, but definitely zero problems that have kept the car from starting, performing properly, or anything like that.
Proportionally speaking, Maserati hit it out of the park with the M139 Quattroporte. And the nose of the car and other styling cues really hark back to the AM107, which I really love. The AM337 was never imported to the States, and the M139 was a little bit of a celebration for people who loved Maseratis but couldn't get them. From this view, you really see that nose overhang the lights that really echoes back to the AM107, car I love. And I think it makes this car really evocative in a way that Ferrari Maserati people really appreciate.
The M139 Quattroporte was designed by Pininfarina and debuted here in the States in 2004 and was built all the way up till 2012. A lot was written about the maligned Duo Select transmission. Now, I don't hate the Duo Select transmission. It's very similar to the transmission that's in the Grand Sport. The tuning's a lot different. When you drive the Quattroporte, you notice that it doesn't shift crisply. In fact, even in sport, it just never shifts properly. It never bangs the gear home hard enough, and it just feels very slovenly the entire time you're driving it. In automatic, it's a nightmare. If you have any mechanical sympathy at all, it slips the clutch the entire time you're driving it, and it feels like that. It's kind of grotesque. So I knew that I wasn't going to get a Duo Select car, and I was waiting for a ZF transmission car. This 2007 is a ZF automatic transmission car, and I think it was worth the wait for me. This engine versus the one in the Grand Sport, essentially the same engine, but a lot of changes. If you read online, you're going to see that they in fact have the same engine. That's not the case. This is a wet sump, that's a dry sump. The Grand Sport has a dry sump, and thus has a few less issues than this car is commonly prone to have. Now, they're not life-ending issues, but it has in common with some of the Alfa Romeo and Maserati products from the era, nightmarish cam variators. This car has a variable valve timing system, much like that of the VTEC Hondas. Basically, it alters timing in the higher RPM range, and that's done mechanically with retard and advance on the front of the cam lobes. They go bad on these cars because being a wet sump engine and the way the valve covers are designed on this car, the oil is not retained up there. There's a pretty easy fix for it, but it's quite labor intensive. This car, I do plan on doing that and showing a video of how that process goes. The parts are not expensive. It's probably the one foible I'd say you'd want to be aware of when buying a Quattroporte, whether it's a Duo Select or a ZF transmission car. Bottom line, if you're looking to add a Maserati to your collection, I'd say go with the Grand Sport. Of the two cars, I have a lot better feeling about the Grand Sport, despite the fact that I have taken this on numerous long trips. It's never failed me, I've never had an issue with it. I do think the potential for service is greater in that the electrical system on this car is a little more fragile than that of the Grand Sport. Quattroporte, you could get it in a couple different flavors. You could get an executive, you could get a Sport GT, and you could get a Sport GTS. Later in life, they did a 4.7 liter. Those obviously are, as it went on, they developed it. Those make more power. They're a little bit more reliable. They're also pretty affordable, so if you're really looking for a great Maserati Quattroporte, those later 4.7 cars are pretty much unbeatable. I really like the purity of this original Pininfarina design. So I'm kind of stuck with this 07, 08, just really speaks to me in terms of the way it looks. Is this going to be a car I own long term? I don't know. Is it going to be one that you could add to your collection? They're so cheap right now that it's one of those things where it's like, maybe, it's definitely something to consider. On the positive note, the Skyhook suspension on these cars in sport mode is pretty fantastic. The comfort mode is so floaty that it's almost Cadillac-esque. I can't handle it, it's not my jam. The other thing I'd say, differences between this and the Grand Sport, the exhaust note on the Quattroporte is unbelievably good. This car is fitted with the Top Speed Pro 1 exhaust. Fitting the Top Speed Pro 1 exhaust was extremely easy. It's stainless steel, it looks great, and it sounds amazing. If you look at the exhaust design on the back boxes on this car, they have different diameter pipes, and I think that sort of harmonic is where Italian cars sort of have where they get that Choir of Angels sort of sound they're known for. This car, driving it down the road, going under underpasses or through a tunnel, absolutely will stand the hairs on the back of your head at attention. It is that good. In terms of performance, it's a heavy car. These cars, power to weight ratio wise, are not like ideal for, amazing performance. These days everything's so fast that 4.9 or 5 seconds 0 to 60 is definitely, and also ran by today's standards, then it was pretty exceptional. I will say it feels great. It will definitely do big numbers on the Speedo. The deal is you can get so many different turbocharged performers these days, like an RS7, S6, all of the Mercedes cars that are gonna put out gobs and gobs of torque. This car isn't a torque monster, it's a horsepower car, and this engine, when I first got it, I came from Audi world, and the lack of torque on these cars is something that was initially really weird to me. The car wants to be hustled, and I don't normally want to hustle a giant four-door sedan. So it is one of those things where, it is a unique driving experience. It may not be for you. Whereas it was very easy to speak glowingly about the Grand Sport, in all terms. I feel like the Quattroporte is like, it's definitely an acquired taste. I will say, anytime I pull into a car meet with this car, or if I pull into a nicer restaurant where there's other nice cars, Ferrari guys love these cars. And I've had more interesting conversations with people driving this car probably than anything else, which is kind of a unique thing.
This is the Italian checklist. Does it look beautiful? Yes. Does it sound beautiful? Yes. Is it quick? Yes. If the answer to those three questions is yes, then ship it. Ship the car. And I seriously think that they're done at that point. They're done designing the car at that point. And okay, I get it. Other things are, I've had every manner of weird warning light, not on the lights themselves, but in the little there's like a center cluster system. And I've had everything from an airbag failure with actually no code, just a variety of things. I've had a check engine light that wasn't a check engine light, but it would say like engine fault. You pull the code, there's no code stored. So, and the tack occasionally will not read properly, which I find extremely charming in Italian. Those things could completely keep someone from wanting this car. That's fine. Always starts, always runs, cruise works, heated seats work, vented seats work, great miles per gallon, sounds awesome. Never a hiccup from the transmission, never a hiccup from the fuel control system or anything like that.
Interior fit and finish on these cars is pretty great. The one area that gets let down is the sticky parts. All Ferraris and Maseratis from this era, and even still to this day, have this coating on the plastics that's just abhorrent. And on the Quattroportes in particular, there are plastic pieces everywhere, and it's pretty disgusting. And honestly, for the first month or so that I owned the car, it was infuriating. I almost was beside myself with how could such a great car be let down by that? Because honestly, the leather feels great, the stitching's beautiful, the wood pieces are beautiful. Like everything in the car, the headliner is all pretty fantastic. And one of my favorite things about these cars are these grab handles. Oh, I just love it. What a great feature. Now I've mentioned before, I love the XJR and the XJL, but the plastic pieces that you actually touch blow my mind. Why? Things like door handles should always be metal, and Bentley, and in this case Maserati, gets that completely right. This is metal, this door handle is metal, and even this beautiful piece right here is completely metal. And I think that's the way that it should be. These door handles are unique in that they have a manual release right here that you can pinch, and they also have an electronic pop that you can hit. Why they did the double? Probably because they knew the electronics were going to break. So, final thoughts. Maseratis are quirky cars. The biturbo era of vehicles definitely had proponents and had a lot of detractors. This era, for me, I think really hit a sweet spot. They did a lot of engineering to make these cars great, and I think to the greater extent they are pretty fantastic cars. Is it a car that you're never going to service? Absolutely not. This is not a Toyota by any stretch of the imagination. But it is a car with an assembly number on it that was built in Modena. It's a rare car. It's one that I think will increase in value over time. Now that they're building all these Levantes and Ghiblis and they're churning them out left and right, I think there's something special about this era car that is going to resonate with collectors and enthusiasts. At the very least, you get a really cheap daily driver, and that's pretty great.
Don't forget to visit timsenthusiastgarage.com where I've got merchandise, blog posts, everything you want. to get closer to the cars that I feature in the series. Also, check out Motorvice, a live Tim's Enthusiast Garage production that focuses on 80s and 90s vehicles, and go to motorviceshow.com to get tickets or to get this sick M1 poster.